eFootball 2027 has dropped, and if you're wondering why it is so challenging now to compete with a free-to-play squad, this is essentially the breakdown. Imagine you're playing a game of chess and your opponent has a full board of queens. In other words, they don't have a specialist in any area. For example, let's just call, these guys a rook, right? Maybe Koundé and Alaba are rooks, and then, Zaire Emery's a knight. I don't know. But these guys are specialists. Koundé is a defensive specialist. Cannavaro, again, is a defensive specialist. Akanji is a defensive specialist. Now, some of these are expected. Your center backs are expected to be defensive specialists. Alaba is a defensive specialist, but surprisingly, he has some offensive passing. But we move up the field, and this is the problem you're going to run into with a free-to-play squad. Again, your guys are specialists in these areas. It's a trade-off, isn't it? We can use Zaire Emery, okay, and have strong defense, or we could potentially put in somebody like Enzo Fernandez and have some offense with it, but we're sacrificing one for the other. It is a sacrifice. Again, left midfielder, okay, he's got the offense, doesn't have the defense. Right midfielder, again, the offense, and I consider James a meta card. James Rodriguez is a very strong card comparative to Lionel Messi. But again, what we're doing here is, and the problem we're running into is notice that these players are specialists in their area. Nunez is a heading specialist, but God forbid you're doing a long ball counter and you kick the ball long to Nunez, because if you have the focus on him being a heading specialist, then he doesn't have the dribbling or the ball control like somebody like Suarez has. Now, again, you'll have some players, like you'll have center forwards, or you'll have left midfielders, right midfielders, okay, deep midfielders, center midfielders, that are multi-purpose. And this is where the competition in this game is. I'm going to show you, I've just been getting annihilated. And understand that I've never been like super duper crazy strong at this game. I'm not saying that I'm weak. My previous performance under 2026, when the players were more like realistically scored, I would say, I would win about 20 to 25% of my games with this same squad. But now when you play your competition, okay, everybody's rocking these metas. Let me go ahead and show you. And if you look at the stats on something like EF Hub, and you go and you look at the stats side by side, I've tried everything, fam, and nothing will work against these squads. You don't have the... It's because you simply don't have the talent to compete. Now, some will say, hey, it's a skill issue. It's a skill issue. Fam, understand that I've been playing this game really, really heavy for 6 months. For 6 months, I've been heavily playing this game. And when you go up against squads, okay, like this, for example, where all of these players are queens on the board, again, you go and you look at somebody like Maldini. I don't even need to check to know. I know that Maldini, I know that Thurman, they're going to be both high on offense and defensive stats. I already know. I already know that the two players above, I don't know who they are, but at deep midfielder, it's going to be the same thing, right? I already know that Hazard is going to have crazy ball control, crazy passing, crazy shooting. I know Lionel Messi is the same way because I've compared that Lionel Messi card to my James Rodriguez card, which, again, is very, very close. James isn't quite there, but very, very close. The point is that the separation now with this game has made it so far beyond competition. And then even when you play a guy, like I just played my previous game, Cannavaro got a red card literally in the first 20 minutes of the game. I lost the game 2-1 against somebody that was running a meta squad. Division 2 player. And again, the only separation is that if I do a long ball counter to Nunez, again, if he's in position, great. But if he's outside of the box, man, he can't dribble for the life of him, right? Versus my opponent doing a long ball counter to a player who's multi-purpose. Again, it's like Nunez is a queen, Suarez is a queen, Scholes is a queen. Everybody across the board is a queen. Meanwhile, you're struggling because you're having to choose one or the other. It's like, Koundé or Reece James. Who do we choose, right? Well, we could choose Reece James, but we're sacrificing that defense. Well, we could choose Koundé. Like, let's compare them side by side. And this is exactly the point that I'm making, right? It used to be that you would have these players and they would be specialists. And that's what the game of football is all about. Specialists, using your specialty. And now, everybody's specialty is everything. And again, there's no thought process that has to go into it. And to make matters worse, the game in the patch notes has noted that it's now easier to score goals from further away. And what that means is, and the problem with that is, which normally, traditionally, I wouldn't have a problem, but if you watch this clip break down, now this was the guy I was playing where I said Cannavaro was out, right? But watch this clip break down. And watch the separation. It's not this clip. It's the next clip. The game creates massive separation to create a goal. And I have no problem with long goals. I think that's cool. I think it's exciting. It's fun. It brings a new element to the game. But when the players play so far back, okay, this is the example right here. Now, this is what I talk about when I talk about creating separation. Look at the separation between Suarez and Koundé. Now, keep in mind, Koundé is a defensive player. He's my strongest right back. Okay, and again, I have no issues if we say, okay, players are going to score goals from further away. But if that's the case, the defense needs to be aware that that's the case. There's no attempt made at all defensively in that scenario. So you're wondering, again, with this latest update, why can't I compete? What happened? Am I terrible at this game now? Is it my formation? Okay, what's the issue? Well, if you want to stay for a few more minutes, I can share with you some things that I have learned. First and foremost, you need an opportunity to score. So you have to have some offense on the field. It's an absolute must. Some of the things that I've learned is I highly recommend having the back four in the 90s defensively. Everybody that you play with a meta squad has 90s overall across the board. Now, I have tested multitudes of formations and styles when it comes to tactics, and we talk about team play style. Okay, quick counter leaves too much open on the back. Possession leaves your players flat-footed. They don't really move down the field. Out wide creates opportunities. It's much like overload. When I say it creates opportunities, if you're going out wide and your opponent catches you on a reverse, like they steal the ball and they counter, there's a lot of opening, a lot of space that's created because your left back or your left center back will pull to the right side of the field. Long ball I've never really tried. Overload never really worked well for me. But again, quick counter and possession game, if you look, quick counter and possession game both have a high line while defending. And for some reason, the long ball counter is the only one that seems to keep the shape. Long and short, the best defense that I have found has been within the long ball counter setting. Now, we're talking about how to set adjustments now. Okay, for me, I like defensive on Alaba. Am I saying his name correctly? I like counter on Nunez. That's typically how I leave things. Now, historically, this has worked very, very well for me. In terms of the breakdown for the statistics, because my players are not really meta players, the only thing that I can do is allow the player to specialize in the area in which they are to specialize in. So you'll notice that Cannavaro is a defensive specialist. Alaba is mainly focused on defense, but I do have him on the wing, so I've added a little bit of passing. Again, Koundé is a defensive specialist. Enzo is sort of balanced. He's not really my DMF. But see, if I take out Enzo, I could put in somebody like Zaire Emery, but you're really sacrificing then the offensive statistics. Let's go back to Enzo. You're sacrificing the offensive statistics, and it's more challenging to move the ball down the field. Long and short here, fam, if your team looks like anything like mine, there's really not much you can do. I mean, I don't want to say that it's impossible, but understand, fam, I've been playing this game more. I definitely haven't gotten worse. I used to win prior to the updates, prior to these meta squads, like the ones that you just viewed. I used to win 20 to 25% of my games as a tier 3 player. And this game has gone so far right in terms of needing to be paid to play to be competitive. And then what's the slap in the face? These YouTubers, they'll be like, no, it doesn't matter. Well, I would love a YouTuber to call me out, okay, a top player, call me out and run with my squad. All right, run with my squad, man, and compete against, top 1,000, 2,000 players. And you tell me, right? You let me know, because I've been trying everything from left to right. This was an interesting one. This guy was actually very, very strong on defense. So I liked him. In fact, his offense was so weak, but his defense was so good that his offensive players, and I think Declan Rice has a lot to do with this, were creating opportunities for him to convert on a quick transition. But again, you run players against your free-to-play players against squads like this, fam. It is darn near impossible, regardless of what you're doing, whichever way you swing it. Like, I don't know what else to say. This game's just not what it was prior to the update. I'd like to know your thoughts. Let me know if you're feeling this. Again, no, there's no need. Like, this community is very, very bad about like rage bait comments, right? Like, the reality is you simply look at the data, and it's not hard to take my squad, for example, and look at the players that I have here, and then plug those players into eFhub and compare them to a squad like the meta squad that I just pictured. By the way, I tried recreating that meta squad with the players that I have on my team. It does not work the same because the players have different play styles, of course. But again, compare my squad to this squad, for example, and you'll quickly discover, like, the separation between the players. It makes it's just not competitive any longer, fam. And like I said, it's not like I'm sitting here playing this game getting worse. I'm getting better as I'm playing, and I used to win 20 to 25% of the games with this squad. Like, Konami, I don't know if I'm missing some free to play players. Maybe I need to pick some up. And then it's funny, like, I saw one of the main, I gotta say, I saw a mainstream YouTuber, and he's like, that new Aubameyang card is absolutely insane. It's like, no, it's not, bro. Like, the new Aubameyang card is not that great. It's easy to say that when you're rocking these 108 players across the board. Where's that Aubameyang card? I think I have him in my subs. Aubameyang, where are you, dude? Here you are. Okay, let's compare him, for example, to... Where's Mbappe? Let's see, Aubameyang to Mbappe, okay? Okay, he wins on ball control dribbling, gets crushed, low pass, lofted pass, gets crushed on finishing by 5, is +5 on heading, is +2 on curl, +1 on speed, gets beat on acceleration, beat on kicking power, has +12 for jumping, so he does have the jumping. And maybe that's where people are saying, oh, well, he's really great. But again, not much better, if about the same as Mbappe here. And if you compare him to the meta squads that we just looked at, he's not even comparative at all. So I think that we need a reality check in this community. And we got to call it for what it is. It's okay to say, the stronger my team has gotten, the easier it's become. If we play a game of chess and you're rocking all queens on the board and I'm rocking, rooks and knights, it's going to be easier for you. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed win, but it's going to be easier for you. You're not going to have to think as hard. You're not going to have to work as hard. And that really has soured tremendously in this game, I would say, over the last 1 to 2 months.